Hola! Thank you for joining us for this installment of Astrology versus Psychology. We are taking a deep dive into hoarding this episode and just taking a look at what psychology has to say about it, what astrology has to say about it, and hopefully what we can learn from each other and for the benefit of anybody suffering from this. Hoarding is a subset of OCD in the DSM-5. And so I was just sort of skimming through and I thought it's something more unique that we could maybe take a look at because it deals with a little bit different energies. And I'm really glad I did, as we'll get into. I'm joined here today by Angela Yuriko Smith. Say hi, Angela.
Hey, how's it going? Looking forward to this topic.
And hoarding, usually what I'll do is I'll look at it and kind of think about what I know about my own experience or my own clients over the years that have come to me, and be like, I would expect to see this or that, or this is what I've seen. And then I'll go look at the charts of celebrities and see if they can give me a little bit more insight if I don't have a whole lot of knowledge. And hoarding, is holding on to things either from a lack mentality, or they'll hold some sort of sentimental value. So right away, it's material things that are often held on to. And I think of Venus with that. So she deals with all things material, and possibly I would expect to see Saturn involved or the moon. In the charts that I've personally seen, there's been a Venus moon opposition a lot of times. So that's just like a feeling of dread, like if I'm not holding on to this, or there'll be like some super sentimental value attached to whatever it is. And so the thing and the emotion and the memory become one. Like the closer the opposition gets to this, it could be a square too. It's a slightly chafing energy is what I would say with this. And so, like in some cases, the hoarding can get so bad as to be, there's somebody in my extended family who will actually move houses. Like he's got an entire house filled so much with stuff that he's going to sell someday. So there's like this feeling like I have to have this thing of value set off to the side, and he will only sell it for this exact price, right? So it must go for that. Otherwise, he'd rather it sit there and literally take up a house that he can't live in. He doesn't live in the house. He lives someplace else. It's just a house filled with stuff. So I've seen how bad it can get on that angle or that end of things. But when I went looking at some of the celebrity charts that we'll bring up, bring them up right now, actually. And so I think first we'll just kind of go into what the DSM-5 has to say about hoarding. It's not super complicated. I've pretty much covered it, but in the interest of consistency, the diagnostic criteria are persistent difficulty discarding or parting with possessions, regardless of their actual value. So in the case of the relative I was talking about, like there were usually like for big ticket items, furniture pieces, things like he had an antique store, right? So in his case, it was disruptive to his life, but the pieces would hold value, but maybe like it would be something like you'd get $50 for it, and he'd be like, no, it's worth $250. That's what I saw it sell for once, like 20 years ago. So regardless of what it's worth now, I hold that in my head, right? So it's a distortion of Venus and the actual value of it to date. This difficulty is due to perceived need to save items and to distress associated with discarding them. So whether that's because of the perceived value, or sometimes they just hold, again, that sentimental value what it's worth on some level that maybe they don't even understand, right? And difficulty discarding possessions results in the accumulation of possessions that congest and clutter active living areas and substantially compromises their intended use. So I think that would count, and we've all seen the hoarding. I think there's like a whole series on people and what they've hoarded, newspapers stacked up high, and it can get really messy and gross too, like depending on how debilitated Venus is and what's going on with their moon. Possibly Mercury and Uranus can get involved here too, because the thinking can get muddled and just intertwined with this need. Like, oh my God, like there's the catastrophic if I don't hold on to these things, as opposed to doing this repetitive behavior that we talked about last time. If I don't hold on to these things, the sky will fall. Like everything will end, So when you say, okay, I'm just going to take these few things out, you might as well be gutting a piece of them and taking their arm. Like it really does, there's a disconnect there, or a faulty wiring that just can lead to very, very much feeling put upon in ways that to us don't seem to connect, right? So hoarding causes clinically significant distress. Were you going to say something, Angela?
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, from people that I've known, because I've had a couple of family members that hoard, and in both cases, it's like definitely like a fear of the future. Like I might need this, but it's in that way that you're just like, it's a little bit ridiculous. I might need this paper clip. I might need these bottle caps. I might need empty milk jugs, that kind of thing. So it's like a real fear of, that's how I see it manifested from experience, from looking at it. And I see that in myself when I do start hoarding something. It's usually because I might need 50 million Walmart bags someday. Like you just never know. I might need to make blankets out of Walmart, and so I have to look at
yourself.
That's how I get out of it, is I go, I can buy this again. It's not that much. I'm sure I can find Walmart bags, and then get rid of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I think we've all been there to a degree, and also had the experience of the next month I did need those Walmart bags. And so it's like, oh, that's how it is, universe. I see. It'll be like, so I had them for 20 years. Finally get rid of them. Hey, where's that thing? I literally have had that happen recently several times with some things where I'm like, okay, we're done decluttering. You go through and you're like, I don't need this anymore. Except you do. So sometimes, I don't know. It's some sort of Murphy-esque type law. So, all right, and the hoarding is not attributable to a medical condition, a brain injury, etc., or can't be explained by another mental disorder. So I just, like I said, I went into this going, Venus is involved somehow, right? Whether it be with the moon or Mercury or Uranus. And I just quick looked at a couple of charts of some celebrities. And let's see, who will we start with? How about Elvis? He's really well known, right? So
yeah, who wouldn't want to get into his head?
Yeah, right. So Elvis has in his chart here, Venus. So there's lovely Venus in Capricorn, which is the survival, I must hold on to this energy. And so you can see that just as a matter of course, but to get to the point of it being a problem and you not like being like, okay, this is ridiculous, let's get rid of these Walmart bags, there has to be something else going on with it. And in this case, he's actually got his Rahu with it, which is a it can be a very distorted, I must do this thing or have this thing. So I can see that, but also right across the way here, and this is something that I ran into when I pulled these celebrity charts that I wasn't expecting, but it's in all of them to a degree, and that's Lilith. So this symbol here is dark moon Lilith, who is, or black moon, you might also hear it called in some cases, but she's the dark side of the moon, the dark side of our emotions. She's the wild feminine energy in us, and she's very active today with Mercury. Like today as I'm filming this. So the fact that she came up in this is something that is not lost on me. She's like, yeah, you need to talk about me a little bit, right? So in this case, she's in an opposition here at 28 degrees across from 29 degrees of Venus. And again, she's that wild survivalist energy. Lilith in the Bible was kicked out of Eden and made to go it on her own with nothing, right? She had to create the world around us. It's Mother Earth creation myth within the Bible is essentially how I see her story. And she's just that like grit and determination to create. So if you're holding on to all that you have, it's for some perceived future, where you would need to create from it. Lilith can also, like, she's that outcast energy and that chip on the shoulder in the lower level, because there is no, it's all a spectrum in astrology, I should say. There's the negative end and the positive end, and we usually jump between. So in this case, I think that she's, showing up with this need to make sure that she's got the raw materials to go into the void to create. Like there's that fear, that primal fear that Lilith can tap into. So I find that interesting. So yeah, Elvis was a hoarder and he really felt he had to. Apparently, who knew? I'm sure a lot of you know, if any of you are Elvis aficionados. And we also get Brad Pitt in here, and he's got the Venus Moon conjunction in Capricorn. It's that energy. Same thing of just it being like on his mind, like something that he has to do all the time to make sure that he's feeling. So he probably gets emotionally attached to his things more so than the strict survivalist, although that's in there. But he's got all the money in the world. He can go buy whatever he needs, right? So he's probably taking care of this over time. But it will certainly heighten that draw of I have to be successful at the mountaintop so that I can have all the things that I need. And again, he's just on the list of celebrities that have talked about having these hoarding issues before.
Interesting. You say that, and I'm thinking Brad Pitt is a hoarder. I just looked it up. He has been described as a hoarder with an overwhelming number of books and magazines at his home, and the quote is, "He's a total hoarder." So, just interesting, like verification of this.
Okay, there you go.
Apparently, they live like hobos. Him and Angelina Jolie lived like hobos. So,
yeah, and he's got, just as a side, he's got Lilith also, to bring that up, in his first house. So he's embodying that Lilith energy that I was talking about earlier. His ascendant and his sun are both in Sagittarius, which is very freewheeling hippie energy. It's like the whole world is my home is Sagittarius. It's the traveler. So very laissez-faire, laid-back attitude on the one hand, but then he's got all this Capricorn, which is very much like got to make sure that things are accounted for and planned for and things are stable. So the two energies are very much, they fight as it is. But I found it interesting that not only does he have that Venus moon conjunction, but Lilith is prominent in his energy as well. So yeah, he likes those wild women. Put it that way. All right, who else do we have here? Well, Andy Warhol was said to be a hoarder as well. And he's got Venus in his first house, so like it does gives that bit of survival mentality to it. But also over here, Uranus is conjunct his moon. And then it's more of a harmonious aspect. So while he held on to things, I don't see it as being like it wasn't disruptive, right? It was maybe seen more as eccentric, is what I would say, because this is all dealing with more harmonious energy. And he wasn't on the official list I saw. He just sort of popped up in my periphery. And so I looked him up to see. So I don't know. I think maybe based on this, I'd say it was more of a perception, or maybe it was an artistic thing. Like he would keep things for that purpose more than anything. And I could see that too, because Venus is with Neptune here as well. So Neptune is artistic, like painting type art and writing, that kind of thing as well. It's anything drawn from the ether. So let me get Megan Fox is the last one. And she's another one to get Venus with Lilith here. I was like, oh, okay, this is where I'm seeing Lilith has just come up time and time again. And yeah, she was another one who's said to be a hoarder. So that's what I would say. She's got it in Gemini rather than in Capricorn, but we do see, again, she's a Capricorn rising with Mars there, right? So that survival mentality. And that's something that I didn't even notice until I brought all this stuff up here today. So I just learned something here on this show, which I love. And it makes sense, right? So you want to make sure that you got all your ducks in a row. And it just goes to a kind of crazed degree depending on how stressed you are and what the environment is like, and how much you trust that the future isn't going to be something scary. In the Lilith story, she was cast out into the void, into the nothing, and so there's that maybe feeling in the background that could happen at any time. And so I guess to bring it all back together, and like what could be done, right? So we know what the Venus energy and the survivalist energy is, and it's calming that, maybe getting that planning in place so that you feel like you're able to take care of anything that comes, like maybe building more of a trust in yourself and those around you, so that you don't feel like you have to fill your entire house up, or hold on to all these things, or just deal with your emotions and get them in a more of a balanced place. If that's where it's coming from, if it's a sentimental value, you could see where it's directly tied in then, and maybe either work with a therapist, or if you're somebody who's dealing with somebody with this in your life, you can have that compassion that to them, because that tie is so strong emotionally, it is a big deal, even though it may not seem like it to you, but it's just a pen, well, but to me, there was that one time that my grandma picked up that pen, and so therefore it means something to me and I can't get rid of it. And depending on how severe this gets, it can be something that can take a lifetime to unravel, if even, because it really does depend. So, but certainly people can, work on just trying to get a more balanced mind and an understanding that the sky isn't falling. And that probably comes to deep childhood work and inner child work at the end of the day, as most things do. So, all right. Did you have anything else to add, Angela?
No, just super interesting. I think I'm still kind of blown over the fact that Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie are hoarders, or he was a hoarder, so.
Well, now you understand why. It's an emotional.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't matter how much money you have.
Yeah.
It's the emotional tie. And so I'd be interested to see if that's just how he grew up, like in that sort of environment, or he has a tie to those books, right? And books especially. Oh man, you read a book, it touches your soul. You keep it on your shelf, right? So I could totally see that. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. I'm Nikki with, I don't even think I said at the beginning, I'm really bad at that sometimes. I'm Nikki with the 11th House Publishing, and Angela is with Authortunities Hub. Both are linked below. I go live, and usually we go live every Wednesday at 6:30 Central Time with something to do with astrology versus psychology. Next week will be PTSD. Sometimes I'm on top of what I think the next subject will be. So that should also be very interesting and enlightening. And yeah, if you want to get involved in either, we welcome you. Authortunities is a algorithm-free environment. It's a social networking for creative types, and we would welcome all of you. And 11th House Publishing is just getting our legs underneath us. We want to change up how publishing is done, give neurodivergent voices amplification, and help bring their ideas out into the world to, build a better future for all of us, really. So don't hoard yourself away, as it were. And we hope to see you. You want to say goodbye, Angela?
Yeah, absolutely. See you guys next week. And yeah, thanks for watching. So interesting. And I'm learning so much about who I am, even like we're all a little bit of any of these, so it's kind of cool just to see, or we've known somebody. So I've really enjoyed these. Thank you, Nikki, for doing these.
You're very welcome. Thank you for joining me, and I will see all of you next time.